Hello, and a very warm welcome to today's Oneness session. My name is Els, and for those of you who are new, let me give you a little bit of a background. Several of us working for Onepoint Consulting are meditating on a regular basis. The meditation we practice is called Raja Yoga. It's the yoga of the mind. I myself have been meditating for many years, and I find this practice very beneficial on many levels. We started this project, Oneness, in 2020. And the feeling was at that moment that it might be good to share some of these ideas and practices with a wider audience. And what we do is every Friday, we invite an experienced meditator and we ask him or her to share their ideas about a particular topic, but also to guide us into a short meditation. So far, we have had more than 80 guest speakers, both from the UK as well as from abroad. All the sessions are recorded and they are available on YouTube. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome Matthew Earl, my colleague, who will take on the session today. Matthew has a background in science. He has over 25 years of experience in technical sales, marketing, and business development. Matthew joined Onepoint in 2019 as the head of business growth and partnerships. Matthew has been meditating for many, many years. He also runs courses and seminars or workshops on spiritual development and meditation. The topic for today is creating new feelings. Let me repeat that. Creating new thoughts and dealing with old feelings. That's what it is. So very warm welcome to you, Matthew.
Thank you, Els. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Looking forward to the session. So hello to everyone, and wherever you are, thank you for joining today. It's a pleasure to be with you. As Els said, I've been meditating for over 20 years and practicing a form of meditation called Raja Yoga meditation for the last 19 years. And just before we go into a guided meditation experience, as Els says, just to introduce the topic and give a bit of background. So I really wasn't interested in religion or spirituality or anything like that before the age of 30. As Els said, my background is in science. I did my degree in genetics, and the more I studied science, the more, in my youthful arrogance, I developed the view that science would be able to answer everything. And so I was really quite a devout atheist for a long time. But one thing I did become interested in my 20s, as I was building up my own marketing business and working with a big team, was the whole concept of positive thinking and personal development. And certainly in the 80s and 90s, this industry was exploding. There were so many books and resources on this sort of stuff. And I always believed in, I guess I would class myself as a humanist. I always believed in the good in people and human potential, but not really within the spiritual, religious realms. So I believed in the power of the mind. And so positive thinking was very interesting to me. Throughout my sort of 20s, I was studying more and more of this stuff and applying it in my interactions with others. I really believed that in work that we should help people with their lives, not just their jobs. And so it was a very, very strong thing for me. But then towards my sort of mid to late 20s, I'd achieved quite a few of the goals I'd set for myself in terms of career and just where I planned to be when I started setting my goals in my late teens. And yet I really felt there was something missing. And there was a bit of a shock to me, actually. And one of the things that had happened in reading all these sort of personal development, positive thinking books was there had been quite a few that had started to come out that started to talk about spirituality and meditation as a vital component of the whole journey to contentment and self-development. And so I gradually became more interested in meditation, certainly in light of my own growing sort of feeling that there was something missing. But it was very much focusing on meditation, not really spirituality as a subject. And as I explored it more and more, I realized how powerful a practice meditation was in terms of creating just more peace of mind and just a sort of underlying feeling of contentment growing, rather than, I guess, an underlying feeling of discontentment and stress. So that was interesting, but it wasn't till I came across Raj Yoga that really things started to move forward. And that's really because of the style of Raj Yoga. It's very much a study and a practice. I've been teaching meditation for 19 years now. And I find that a lot of people who don't try meditation, haven't tried meditation before or quit, it's because they often feel there's something uniquely wrong with their mind, that they can't focus, or they're just not cut out for meditation, and the mind is all over the place and they just can't do it. And certainly when I started meditation, was trying various different techniques. At the start, it was a bit of close your eyes and hope for the best, and not quite knowing how it was going to go or what exactly I'm supposed to be doing in meditation. So Raj Yoga sort of answered all those questions for me. And Raj Yoga, the meaning of the word Raj is royal. And yoga, although in the West and even in the East now, it's usually associated with physical exercise and stretching and this sort of thing. But the original meaning of yoga is connection or union. So these two words together, royalty and connection, may not make much sense at first, but it's pointing towards the fact that we all have a very high system of virtues inside of us, every single one of us, every single soul. And it's rediscovering this royalty inside the self, this dignity of the self. And yoga, meaning union or connection, is connecting to that truth, that inner truth about who I really am, beyond the roles I play and the experiences I've had in life, but really cutting through all of that and getting through to the true beauty and power of the self, the soul. So it was a very interesting journey, and the meditation that we're going to do is going to explore the sort of levels and thoughts and feelings. But one thing I think I noticed with just working on the level of the mind and just with positive thinking before discovering Raj Yoga was that you can do a lot of work on the level of the mind, but there's so much stuff from the past, so much stuff we've experienced, and psychology research has shown that, we create these days, because we're so busy, around 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and that over the period of our life, the estimate is that 80 to 90% of those thoughts are either negative or repetitive thoughts that we repeat over and over again every day, that aren't very useful. And that's because these days, a lot of the input we get is pretty negative, whether it's through the news or social media or whatever. So the mind starts to reflect that external negativity, and therefore it sort of stands to reason that I won't feel very peaceful or contented with that sort of mindset. But when I try and change my thoughts and think more positive, I found it had very beneficial effects for a time. but then one can hit a bit of a brick wall. And it's because there's a huge undercurrent in the subconscious mind of all sorts of thoughts and feelings that we don't really remember, but they have a huge influence on how we feel. And it's very difficult to fix the mind from the level of the mind. Someone once said that you can't solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created the problem in the first place. And I thought that's a really interesting phrase. You can't solve a problem from the same level of thinking that created the problem in the first place. And the great thing about Raj Yoga is it gives us a way to actually go beneath the mind, go beyond the mind. So rather than trying to dive into the subconscious, which is a bit of a minefield, is to actually go beyond the mind itself. And so Raj Yoga introduces this concept of the self as a soul, as an eternal point of energy that sits in the forehead behind the eyes. And this energy is my original and true consciousness. But because we've had this sort of human experience with the five senses, and we're very used to that, our attention has moved almost completely away from this connection with the self as an eternal being, as a pure, peaceful being, and has collected information through the eyes, ears, mainly, about who we are from the outside world. So again, media and what other people have told us about ourselves. And over the generations, this can become a bit of a vicious cycle, where we've gradually moved more and more away from the truth of who we are and are taking our cues about who we are from just our life experience and what we've heard and experienced about ourselves. So how do we go beyond that? And this is where I found Raj Yoga very useful. And the meditation we'll do now next is going to explore going beyond the influences in my thoughts and feelings. So part of the solution is creating new thoughts, because the agent of change is the mind. To be able to, if you like, remember, reprogram, but the real thing is remembering who I am originally, who I am in truth, then it's very important to create thoughts that remind myself of who I am. So on a very basic level, thoughts like, I am a being of peace. And one of the interesting things is that when you start meditation, you become aware of voices in your head. Like if you create the thought, I am a being of peace, then often the first reaction from the subconscious is to throw out a thought that says, no, you're not. Do you remember that argument you had yesterday, or the conversation you had earlier on today? So this is another reason often why I find people quit meditation, is because there's not the realistic expectation that actually you're going to get a lot of kickback from old thoughts and feelings, from old programs that are running when you start to try and change your thoughts. And also because when you're sat in meditation and sat still, you often become aware of thoughts and feelings that we sort of are in the background, but we're not really that aware of them when we're active and doing our normal day-to-day tasks. I find actually that's why a lot of people find it difficult to sit still or to start meditation. It's because you've almost become addicted to activity and sort of really understandably trying to avoid dealing with what's really going on in the mind, because obviously if we don't have any solution for it, then avoidance is maybe the only strategy. So we want to change that. So really it is about creating new thoughts, but in terms of dealing with old feelings, dealing is probably not the right word, because we don't want to get into a business relationship with our feelings where it becomes a tit for tat, give and take. Probably resolving old feelings would have been a better word. let's use that, creating new thoughts, resolving old feelings. But again, if I try and go into my feelings, then it can be a real minefield. And the thing is, my feelings influence my thoughts. You know, thoughts create feelings, that's for sure. So if I want to change my feelings over time, I need to create old thoughts. But I've got such a vast well of old feelings that have been created. And they really are like an undercurrent. They have a huge influence on my thinking and obviously how I feel. So rather than trying to solve it from within, going into those feelings and working out what happened and why and all that stuff, is to just cut through that and try and reconnect with myself as a soul, as a peaceful being. So let's do a meditation exploring that. So sitting comfortably, and one of the things I notice when I'm doing a guided meditation is that the speed of words slows down. So it's really good to just have this intention to take a step back from everything. Don't think about anything apart from that this is a very precious time for me to look after myself, to explore this whole experience of meditation and what new experiences I might be able to create through a practice of meditation. And you'll see a point of light in front of you, and this can be quite a useful tool just to rest your eyes on that point of light. And it can be used as a representation of the soul, actually. You can't see the soul with physical eyes, but if you could, it might look something like this tiny point of light. And actually, it can be quite peaceful, just resting your eyes gently on that point as we go through the meditation. So just following the words I speak, just reflecting on them. If you find your mind drifts off just into focusing on the point, that's fine. And if you find your mind is drifting off into thinking about the day or anything else, then as soon as you catch that, don't be frustrated with that if you can, but just bring your attention back to the meditation and to the point of light in front of you. It can be good to view the mind as an ocean. Visualization is quite useful in meditation, and this one I use myself and I particularly like. Mind as an ocean, it's so vast. I think about all the thoughts and feelings I've ever had, and it's a vast arena. And you see the surface of the ocean is the thoughts that I'm having right now. And for most people these days, the surface of this ocean of the mind is rarely calm. There are often multiple storms happening, some smaller waves, some very big waves. And we find we get very influenced by our external circumstances, the roles we're playing, work or family, or what's happening in the news, or we create a lot of storms in the mind. And we've got very used to reacting to and basing our sense of how we're feeling on external factors, external influences. But it's interesting that different people can react very differently to the same situations in life. Someone can go through a very testing experience and decide to use that to help others going through a similar experience, or someone else can become very traumatized by an identical experience and feel very angry and negative for a long time. And that's because what creates our sense of self, what creates our reality, is not what happens to us, but how I respond to what happens to me. And that's to do with what's going on under the surface of the mind, where we go into the realms of deeper thoughts and feelings. I'd like you to imagine that this is very safe, it's not physical water, but that I take myself just under the surface of the ocean and actually gently continue to move into the depths. And as I go downwards, immediately there is less of an influence from the very turbulent surface of the ocean. I'm not getting knocked around by all the waves of thoughts so much, but I can still feel the influence. I'm still getting swayed and moved around. So I continue further down into the depths of the mind until actually I can't feel any influence, any of the storms going on the surface. And it's much quieter. Maybe I'm starting to just feel a little bit more peaceful. But here at this level, there's still influences on my thoughts that I may not be aware of. Like we get currents in the ocean. They can be very strong currents of movement in the depths of the water. And I might not be aware of them being there at all, but they can be moving me in directions in life that I don't want to go. And these influences could be old patterns, for instance, where maybe they're like programs in the depth of the mind that keep drawing me into making the same mistakes repeatedly. And I just don't know why, and I get frustrated. But it's very difficult to know what's going on in this region of the mind, and very tricky to try and sort it out. So I keep moving deeper. And as I move deeper into the depths of the ocean, I start to notice that I'm approaching the ocean floor. And unusually, in this case, I see there's a lot of light coming from the ocean floor. And as I approach the ocean floor and gently rest my feet, it feels very stable. And I feel like I've moved into a new place that's beyond any influence of the mind. And this light, I realize, is my own light, the light of the soul, this tiny point of conscious energy that I am. And it's very, very still. There's no movement here. And yet, the light of the soul is very much a vibrant, dynamic energy. But it's not a physical energy. It's an energy that is full of peace, serenity, contentment. And I just take a few moments to enjoy being connected with that truth of who I am. And I start to realize that if I spend time here, that this light can influence the mind above. And will start to dissolve all the currents and turbulence in the mind, and will give a lot of power and strength to the mind. And this can be done just through spending time, stepping back and thinking about myself as a soul. And naturally, as I do this, whatever my beliefs about this are, I'll start to naturally tune into a divine energy, which is very much operating at the same level. It is an energy that is just completely loving, completely accepting, and completely peaceful. And I will find that I can take a lot of sustenance and support from this constant, unchanging, benevolent energy. And it takes practice, daily practice. Maybe there's just an inkling that if I start to spend even a few minutes a day in this different consciousness, connecting to myself in a very different way than maybe I've been used to doing, that actually it could, well, really, really benefit my thoughts and feelings, help me to transform old thought patterns and feelings that have created stress or discontentment in the self. That light of the soul really purifying the mind, cleansing the mind. So as I return to my day, as I return to the surface, I notice that although the situations outside haven't changed, the challenges are still there. I am starting to feel differently about my life. I feel more confident that I can face the challenges of the day. So with that very precious thought, I bring my attention back to the day ahead with renewed optimism and a sense of peace starting to develop that maybe wasn't there before. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Very beautiful meditation experience, very peaceful. And also what I like about your talk is that you explained, that's a question I had for you actually, is that meditation is not so easy to start with because you have all these thoughts coming, and to discipline the mind or to stabilize the mind is quite an art. But you clearly then explained daily practice, regular meditation. These are the kind of tools that will help us, and then slowly, slowly we will feel that peace in ourselves and that connection with our true self. So thank you so much, Matthew.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So next week we have Anna from Lebanon joining us. Anna did a session last year on Plato's allegory of the cave and its connection with meditation. That session seemed to be very popular, and people had requested to have a follow-up on that session. So Anna is going to continue with a part 2 next week, Friday, 9 a.m. UK time. So rest me also to say a big thank you to the technical team helping out every Friday. And just a reminder that the sessions are available on YouTube. So thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Bye-bye.